Welcome to the Sunday Driver. My name is Jason Allen. I own a Model A. It's a 1929 station wagon, which is a 150A, sometimes called a Woody. It's the first production station wagon in the United States. This podcast was the brainchild of working on that car and realizing there was so much I didn't know. And maybe you're new to the Model A hobby, maybe you're an old timer. And over the last maybe 10 years, I guess, people have been producing videos and putting them on YouTube, instructional videos. And these, actually, there were educational films going way back, and then more recently, as I say, YouTube. And I conceived of this podcast as a way to actually have a two-way conversation with someone who knows a lot about a specific thing in the Model A profession. And kind of my idea was to have as an entree into bringing them on board as a conversation about how they got into the hobby. And I've never done a podcast before, and I've learned a whole lot. One of the things that I learned is that people aren't really eager to talk to a stranger about anything. Call it America today, I don't know. And I realized that, as humbling as that experience has been for me to reach out to folks and be politely declined, sometimes ignored, sometimes told to reach out again when you've got a few episodes. What I understand is that we live in a world where once you go online, maybe you make a post in a group or something on Facebook or where have you, that nasty little trolls will come out from under their bridges and say things that are sometimes unkind, sometimes hateful, sometimes completely inaccurate. And that while I was asking people to do something and they don't know me, they don't know if I'm a good guy or a bad guy. And if my platform is going to be an opportunity to blindside them and tell them why you can't do X, Y, and Z to your car, or no, you shouldn't ever blah, blah, blah. Well, that's not me. And if I'm going to ask others to tell me how they got into this hobby, it's incumbent upon me to tell you my story. So here goes. I bought my car late last year. It was bought in Illinois and had to be shipped to me in California. Where I live in California, way out in the Coachella Valley, there are, if I had to guess, maybe a dozen Model A owners with their cars. We don't have a chapter here of either the Model A Ford Club of America, MAFCA, or the Model A Restorers Club, MARC, in my area. So it's hard to get someone, to connect to someone in what might be a monthly meeting where a club chapter is and just talk about stuff or get information or a how-to or some guidance on a particular thing I'm working on. Now, I do have two buddies in the Valley, each with Model A's, and we sometimes get together and we'll brainstorm or talk to each other by text, borrow tools between each other, specialized tools, and that's been super helpful. But that's not how I got started in this. My journey started about, 50 years ago at this point, when I read a book, and it was about three guys in high school, somewhere in Southern California, and they find a jalopy that's being used as a chicken coop. And that car was a Packard. It was a 1932 Packard. And I'm a little kid in the library. We came from pretty modest means. I had 4 siblings. My dad was a bartender. My mom was a civil servant. So there was no money for cars or a lot of books. But this book took me to a different world. And these guys took this jalopy and then got into a challenge with other guys in their high school. They had a 1940 Ford, I guess it was. And they went on a road rally. Well, the story captured my imagination. And shortly after that, I started putting together, I'd save my money, mow lawns or whatever, and I would start to put together those old metal model kits of cars, and I had Fords, I had Chevys, I had Packards, I had Cadillacs, and those were gas. Loved those. And at some point, I got involved in Sea Scouts, and my visions and my desires for a car kind of went into the background because I wasn't old enough to get one. And then, sort of life took over. And yeah, I bought secondhand cars in high school and worked on them and into college. And eventually I got a brand new car, and it was a series of modern cars after that. So about 2 years ago, I was just desperate to remember the name of this book that I had read. And I decided to kind of bum around Facebook and found a car club, posted the synopsis that I just recounted to you, and within, I think, 5 minutes, someone responded that it's called The Magnificent Jalopy. And this book has been out of print for years. I managed to get it as a PDF, I don't know, on Amazon or something. And it was delightful. And in that rereading, I suddenly realized, I'm 58 at this point in my life. I have a career. I'm reasonably successful. I wonder what sort of classic car I could buy if I really wanted to do that. And lo and behold, Model A surfaced. And why a Model A and not a Packard? Because I don't make enough money to have a Packard. And, Packards are pretty specialized. Aren't a lot of people that work on them. And parts are hard to come by, and parts are expensive. Model A's, on the other hand, lots of them, and parts are available. There are lots of suppliers. And going back to high school, when I did work on cars, I figured, I haven't worked on cars in 40 years, but I bet I can figure it out. And of course, then I stumbled upon the YouTube videos that I just started diving into. So fast forward, last year, I joined the Model A Ford Club of America. Great folks. I had the opportunity to go to the national convention, which happens every 2 years. So I bought a ticket. I was so excited about going to Rodisco in New Mexico. And then it got canceled because of a natural disaster. There was wildfires that shut everything down, destroyed a lot of stuff. Silver lining, it happened prior to all these Model A's getting to town, which would have just been all the worse, right? But I did have a chance to go to the Gilmore Museum's Model A days. And it was there that I was just absolutely enchanted with the cars, the culture, the museum. My goddaughter, who's in college, and her mom joined me. They live in Michigan. And I had so much fun. Now, I actually was able to identify a 1931 Model A station wagon, which is a 150B, that was in Wisconsin. And because I can be resourceful, I called the local chapter, MAFCA, and got a hold of somebody and said, hey, is there anyone that can go check the car out for me? So these two fellows in the club went out, they looked at the car, they said, hey, this is a decent car. So I went and looked at it. Well, the family, it was their granddad's. Family hadn't driven it in 4 years. The two fellows that went out, when I showed up to go to the Model A days, one of those two guys joined me. He had trouble getting it started. He was able to pull it together. We drove the car. It needed a lot of work. And I was up for it, but their price didn't really match what they were offering. So, although I tried to negotiate, they instead decided to put it back in the barn. And maybe someday one of the family members, one of the young kids that calls it Chitty, will grow up and take care of that car. Meanwhile, this fellow in the club said, hey, I noticed another car down in Illinois. Well, I chugged down to Illinois, called up a local chapter of MAFCA, said, hey, is there anybody that would available? Go look at the car with me. Did, drove it, the rest is history. It took about a month to get the car here. And while I make no money on this channel, or channel podcast, if it ever turns into something, I will make no money on the people that I recommend to you. And I will tell you that the car shipper that I used was Plycar. It was phenomenal. I don't think it was actually that much more expensive than competitors. And I found them because in Palm Springs, which is the next town over from where I live, McCormick's does auctions and has a showroom. And I called them and said, who do you use? And they're like, we only use Plycar. Well, Plycar did an amazing job. So here I am, not quite a year later. I've done a number of things on my car, and you can find my Instagram page, or I guess Instagram is the best source for it. And you can see some of the things that I've done, because I've done some documentation, but like, I'm a ham. And my videos are not meant to be purely instructional. Instead, they're just sort of demonstrate that I'm this old guy figuring stuff out, and if I can do it, you can do it. Now, I know a lot of people say that. It requires some resources. You got to have tools. You got to have some of the books, Les Andrews' book and a few others. You've got to be willing to research what you need to get done, and you have to be humble and ask for help. Yeah. Now, some may also say, okay, why even do this? Why spend this money on a car? Why learn something new? Why get your hands dirty? And some of this is where my spirituality comes in. I work a lot, and it's just my nature. And I needed something that would make me slow down. And I will tell you, driving a Model A helps you slow down. And it helps me to be completely present when I'm driving the car. It's easy to jump into a modern car, turn on some music, and buzz down a highway or a city street, and just sort of know that it's gonna run. Assuming you have a car that's less than 5 to 10 years old. And I'm guilty as the next guy. I might look at a text. I might fiddle with the radio, quote unquote radio. It's all apps now, for music. I may listen to a podcast and zone out. But I tend to get where I'm going safely. I haven't been in an accident in many years, thank God, touch wood. And also haven't gotten a ticket in a long, long time. In a Model A, or any classic car for that matter, I don't care if it's, a car that's from the 50s, 60s, 70s, maybe even to the 80s. I have to be fully aware of what I'm doing, upshifting, downshifting, looking left and right. And why is that? Because if I get in an accident, the other car is probably going to be fine. Me and my passengers and my car, not so much. I also have to be listening for things that might be going wrong. I have to be fully aware as I look around, like, who's coming from where? And then I almost have to kind of feel the car. Is it wobbling in a way that it isn't normal? Is it steering correctly? Am I braking okay? Do the brakes grab to one side or the other? And then are those things that I need to kind of put on a mental checklist, so when I get home, I got to write that down and know that that's going to be something I'm going to be doing next week when I have some free time. Now, is a Model A right for you? I have no idea. But one of my hopes with doing this podcast and talking to the people that I hope will talk to me is to inspire young and old alike to consider it as a hobby. And that's for a few reasons. One, these are mechanical apparatus. They do well to be operated and worked on and lubricated and fiddled and futzed with, as opposed to just sitting in a museum. One of the things I had a chance to do while at Model A days last year was ride in a Model T. Like, wow, that's kind of wacky the way those operate. And yet, to my great nieces and nephews who are 10, 11, 12, and some younger, just driving my Model A is wacky to them, right? They're used to getting into a modern car and have, a TV screen so they can watch a Disney movie, and automatic windows and automatic locks and seat belts and so forth. So I don't know. There's something enchanting about not only driving my car, but also working on it. And in a world where things are disposable now, Your toaster breaks, you probably throw it away. Your blender breaks, you throw it away, buy a new one. It's amazing that I can spend a few hours, sometimes a few days, researching and figuring out a project, calling people, and maybe getting some help, but then actually executing on that project and then enjoying the work that I did. I'd also say it's a gas driving your car and seeing the thumbs up and stopping at a stoplight and people, rolling down their window and asking you questions or videotaping you or taking pictures. I mean, yeah, that's fun. And I do that. I do this for that, among other reasons. And I will say that I've even had to appreciate the times when my car is on jack stands and it's taking a whole lot longer to get something done. Talk about learning patience, which in my profession I don't necessarily have a lot of. I expect people to do what they're supposed to do, when they're supposed to do it, and do it well. So that's it. That's my story. I have a couple of things I want to add. If you are someone in the Model A hobby that has specialized knowledge on brakes, a horn, transmissions, engines, interiors, sewing together an interior, installing an interior, replacing the wood blocks, I want to talk to you. And I want to hear your story about how you got into this hobby. And then I want to learn about what you know. And I'm going to say, don't worry about what others have to say about what you are doing when it's negative. Like, who cares? It works for you. And you're offering information. And hopefully through our conversations, we're going to invite others to get into this hobby and be enthusiastic about it. And if you sell a product, great, talk to me. What's your product? You got a special tow hitch that bolts onto the back of a Model A so that you can carry a teardrop? Great. Let me have a conversation with you. And I'm also going to say, I'm not particularly interested in hot rods. I may have the chance to talk to someone that does hot rodding. Great. To each his own. And those that complain about modifications to cars, whether we'll say the extreme is a hot rod or, I don't know, going to a 12-volt system, it's not your car. You can get cranky about it and that we should preserve everything, but it's that man or woman's car. They get to do what they want with it. I want this to be a friendly format. I so want it to work. I've paid my fees for this month and will continue to do it for the next 12 months to get this off the ground. I am not giving up. But by the same token, just like with my car, there are certain things I don't know how to do. And if this turns out to be one of the things I don't know how to do, so be it. With that, I'm going to end. Remember my invitation, please. You can find me on Instagram at the Bishop in Palm Springs. That's a whole nother story why my car is called the Bishop. And maybe I'll tell it someday. And you can see my email address below. If you really Google me, you can find my phone number. I'm happy to take your call. That's it for now, and I look forward to connecting with you either in a podcast or as you listen to me wherever you are. Have a wonderful day.